Hi, this is Mike Volts. I'm here. I'm calling in.
Perfect. Representative Volts, welcome. If you want to go ahead and just mute yourself on your phone, I'll keep you open on our line.
So what do I do? I hit *6 or something like that?
There you go. Well, good morning again. Welcome to the West Plains Chamber State of Housing Zoom event. It's 11 o'clock. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes as more of our participants get in the room. Everybody will be muted once you enter into the room. So just again, periodically check to make sure that you stay muted throughout the call. And then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions of our presenters momentarily. All right, well, welcome everyone to the West Plains Chamber State of Housing Zoom event. My name is Toby Bremling. I'm the Executive Director here at the Chamber, and we are so thankful that you decided to spend your morning with us. We also appreciate that you were able to navigate a little bit of an error on our registration page. It didn't start at midnight tonight. It will end at noon today. So, or I should say it won't end at midnight tonight. It'll end at noon, so just an hour. But again, thank you so much for being on the call. We especially want to thank our sponsors, Lexington Homes and Fig Tree Home, for sponsoring today. We're excited, or I'm excited to hear from our presenters today. So to give you a little bit of a context, housing has been a top priority of our chamber for a few years now. And it kind of came to a light when our superintendent from Cheney made kind of an observation as he was doing his feasibility study that he's expecting to go from 5,000 kids to 9,000 kids in the next 10 years. So a huge jump. And especially since we've been hearing over and over again the expansion of the West Plains of $500 million in private investment, bringing in 5,000 jobs. Where are these people going to live? The nature of Spokane is that there's a lot of people that live maybe in one quadrant but live elsewhere. So there is such an opportunity here in the West Plains to find housing and places for people to live. Now, especially in the midst of COVID, it's a relevant topic today to see what changes have been are on the horizon. So I'm excited to hear from our speakers, which will be Joel White of SHBA, Jason Hunnell of Lexington Homes, Christy Hamby of Windermere West Plains, and then Kevin Anderson and Heather Trotman from the city of Airway Heights, as well as Representative Mike Bowles, also with Spokane County as well. So a couple other things just to kind of set the stage of our topic today. So one, we've heard that Amazon opened up their facility. It's about 2,000 employees that they say are now working in that facility, especially on our Zoom call that we had last month. We heard from our economic developing partners out here in the West Plains, just announcing that rebounding is just on the horizon for the West Plains. And there's a lot of calls that are coming in and almost picking up where we left off from our expansion and some of the growth out here. And then an interesting just kind of article that was referenced in an Ignite Northwest Zoom event. The CEO of Redfin just kind of made an observation that I'm sure many of you have also heard, just that with COVID changing how we do work, a lot more people are teleworking, and just the anticipation or the forecasting of a lot of larger companies embracing the fact that their employees can work from home. And so maybe some of those employees are starting to flee the bigger cities and starting to move to smaller markets like a Spokane, and the West Plains is just primed, being only 15, 17 minutes from downtown. So it'd be great to hear from our speakers of is that opportunity something that you're anticipating or that you're seeing. So right now, before we get into our call, I definitely want to just do a little bit of Zoom etiquette. As I mentioned in our last call, I'm sure many of you have been on ample amounts of Zoom calls, but just to kind of coach you through it, we ask that you stay muted throughout the call. If you do have a question, go ahead and put your question in the Zoom function down there at the bottom of your screen. And then once we have all of our presenters go, we will kind of ask those questions in chronological order. Also, if you do have a question and we're at a point where we can allow you to hear your voice, just make sure you remember to *6 is how you unmute yourself if you are calling in, and *6 also is to mute yourself if you've accidentally unmuted yourself when you call in. So right now, I definitely want to thank again our Zoom call sponsors, again, Lexington Homes and Fig Tree Home. At this time, I want to hand the floor over to Jason Hunnell, the VP of Lexington Homes at D.R. Horton Company, to say a few words. Jason.
Hey, thanks, Toby. I appreciate it. I just really wanted to take this kind of few-minute opportunity to just express, one, the gratitude for our ability to do this, and two, kind of give you guys a sense of who we are and what we do. So I know it's a little scary sometimes for folks in the real estate community, in the real estate industry, to hear about a national builder coming into your market. It tends to scare a lot of people. And the one thing I really want to pass on in that is the folks that are running Lexington Homes, the D.R. Horton Company, are the same people that have been in your market for 20, 30 years. Dave Nearin, our division president, had been the owner of Lexington Homes, Inc. since 1998. He is currently our division president for D.R. Horton now. And he's built over 800 homes in the Spokane market since 1998. Myself, I came from Greenstone Homes. I was with them for a long period of time. And born and raised in the area, I've lived in Liberty Lake the majority of my life and still live in the South Valley. And so we're dealing with local people that know the local market and try to provide the best value product that we can. And so I think it's important to kind of express that, because a lot of times people see, oh, D.R. Horton's here, great. Somebody from Texas is coming in to build homes, and it's not. We're the ones that are doing it. So kind of a fun thing for us to do. And we are really excited about the West Plains. The West Plains has been one of our top producing areas in all the areas that we're operating in currently. And for us to get the opportunity to be a good partner and a good steward with you guys is really important for us.
Thank you, Jason, and we really do appreciate the partnership, and it's exciting to see as you guys continue to break ground all over the place and in new projects that we're going to hear about hopefully as well. Well, at this time, we definitely want to invite our next sponsor, Fig Tree Home. Valerie Santillanes, would you like to say a few words? And I think Valerie might be coming on the call here in just a little bit. But just in case you don't know, Fig Tree Home is a brand new business that's right there on 3rd Avenue, right when you get off the freeway in Spokane. The Santianas have been a great partner of our chamber, owning Pepper Tree Hospitality in the Best Western out here in the West Plains. So we appreciate their partnership, as well as I think they've got a great special going on Friday. So make sure you go down, fill your house that you've been quarantining in all the last few months with some of their great wares, and they're offering a discount to chamber members. So again, thank you so much to Valerie and Fig Tree Home for sponsoring this event as well. All right, at this time, I want to hand it off to our 2020 board chair of the West Plains Chamber, Eric Putoff, to say a few words.
Wonderful. Hey, thanks, Toby. And thanks to Jason and Valerie for your sponsorship and continuous support of our chamber. We really appreciate everything that you're doing to help grow our community, and especially what you're doing out here on the West Plains. I also want to thank all our speakers today. It's going to be an interesting topic. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And then thank everybody for joining us this morning. We have a really packed house. I love seeing, so many people join us on these. So thanks again for joining us. I just wanted to share a quick update of where we're at with the chamber. And so we are running, all over the place right now, just trying to do what we can to support our membership. So one thing that I would suggest all of you out there as members to do is keep in communication with us. We want to hear if you are struggling with something and what those struggles might be. We do have opportunities to help and resources to help you. And we also have a really good network of partners that are trying to do the same thing in our community. And we don't want to just hear also about the struggles or hurdles that you might be having. We also want to hear about your success stories too, because the more you share about those, the more that we can pass on tips and tricks to others who might be in a similar situation. So just keep us in mind when you're out trying to adapt to this new economic climate. We want to be there to help, and we're doing our best to make sure that we can be right there beside all of our members. So thanks again for all your continuous support, and I'm going to turn it back over to Toby. So thanks again, everyone.
I appreciate it. And Eric, that was a good pun, packed house. I liked it. Well played. Well, right now we're going to move into our feature part of our presentation. And so just the format, how we're going to do this, we're going to allow each one of our speakers to speak and kind of share their state of what the housing looks like in the Spokane region, specifically in the West Plains. And then what we'll do is, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat box. And then at the very end, once everybody's had a chance to speak, I'll kind of facilitate some of those questions at that point. So right now, I just want to say thank you again to our speakers. Joel White, Executive Officer of SHBA. We're going to give him a chance to start our presentation. SHBA is a great partner of our chamber and a great advocate for housing in not only just within the Spokane region, but just their affiliation with BIW from the state level. And so we're anxious to hear from Joel of what are you hearing and what are you experiencing in the housing market? What can we expect?
Hey, thanks, Toby. Again, you guys have a great association and the chamber, and so really love the partnership, and I'm very happy to be on this panel. I'm going to talk more high level, and I know you have experts here that are much smarter than I am to talk to the local issues. So one thing to know is that Spokane is growing, and I've talked to a number of builders to confirm this. You'll hear from Jason as well. We are unique. We're still going to see growth in spite of some of the other changes. Everybody's talking about, even from the national levels, what's going to happen with COVID. Are we going to see a fall spike? And I talked to builders, and they're not anticipating much of a slowdown if we do have something happening. So also it proves in the permitting. I usually track, and you guys have heard me before talk about building permits, and I just looked at the May permits, and we jumped over 100% in building permits from last year. A lot of that is multifamily. We're seeing a big spike in multifamily. Also, as many of you guys know, building codes and energy codes, there's a lot of concern of what the cost is going to be to adopt those new codes. And so you're going to see people, and I think some people still think they're going to be adopted July 1. They're actually November 1. So just talking to the county, they've had a big spike of building permits in June. And so you're going to see that happen as well. So people trying to get invested in before the new codes come into play. A lot of things are happening. Like I said, you just see the demand coming. This is in spite. So we're actually ahead of last year for total permits permitted, total units permitted. And that's with about 2 months where there was hardly any permits pulled. So there's definitely a lot of activity happening. There's some challenges. There's some drag on the industry, and it's partly, it's not intentional. It's like we just heard, the county. I don't know how, I'd be curious to see how Airway Heights is doing and maybe some of the other jurisdictions in the West Plains, but the county is behind on building permits. They can't keep up with the demand right now. They had some staffing shortages because of COVID. And so it's not the builders that are really the slow down. They're building as fast as they possibly can. It's more so the actual, permitting, the regulatory, and also, materials, other things that are maybe in short supply. The supply chains were broken. So a lot of things are happening. West Plains is a great future location. As Toby said, you guys have everything in place. You have an economy that's working, and there's definitely a need for housing. It's just getting the industry able to build those homes. We'd always talk about the three major factors are land, labor, and lumber. And so right now, West Plains does have land, but is it available? Is it permittable? Does it meet all the challenges with stormwater and water? You can access those pieces as well. And then, of course, the labor is still tight. We don't have enough bodies still to build out the houses that are necessary in our community. So a lot of those things you're seeing are, those are perpetual throughout our nation, not just Spokane. There's just growth management. I know that the county commissioners will be working with some of your jurisdictions to expand the boundaries of some of the cities in the West Plains. So that could be, which moves some of the areas out to provide more land availability to meet that demand that you have. So I think there's some opportunities that are not available in the rest of in the rest of the county that may be available only in West Plains. And that's sort of like that community, your community has to make those decisions, and your leaders, your elected leaders have to make those decisions working with the county commissioners. So I think that's a key element that you guys look at. Material prices have been fairly, they're starting to rise, again, supply chain issues, but it's not a major factor, but I think it could be over time, especially as the housing demands we see nationally, housing's picking up. And so those are things we need to be watching out for. But like I said, I think the West Plains is in great position right now. I see we're not seeing the slowdown of those buyers coming in from out of area. If you talk to the real estate, and I'd be curious to see what Christy has to say, but talking to other realtors is you're still seeing out of area buyers coming in with equity from their homes that they sell on the west side. And those markets have still been fairly strong, and they're able to come and build nice houses over in Spokane, and they can telecommute. They could work in out in Medical Lake or in Airway Heights or Cheney and still commute to their jobs and get to the airport quickly if they have to take a flight to Seattle. So those are things that are still out there as an option. So having said that, I will sort of big oversight, try to stay under 5 minutes. My clock's getting down to the end here, Toby. But yeah, so if you need me, I can answer additional questions going forward.
Thank you, Joel. Hey, before you mute yourself, I do have one question just that you didn't touch on. I know, just if you wouldn't mind, I know with the COVID and the building industry kind of being halted, I guess what I'm hearing from you is that a lot of your builders, they're still going. I mean, would you say that there was a slowdown in any of that production, or are they just trying to
yeah, there was time? The governor's order was really unclear, and so there was a lot of interpretation that happened. So some builders largely kept moving even during the shutdown, and the workers really want to work because that's their time to make money. They're seasonal work a lot of times, so they get a lot of hours during that period of time. But most shut down for a short period of time. Then we got into phase one, which allowed in the industry, we were faster than some of the other industries. We were one of the first to get going thanks to our state association's efforts. But what happened is that allowed for existing projects to continue. And then when we went into phase two, before the other industries did, then we were able to start new construction. And that's where just getting those permits from the county and the cities has been one of the challenges. But like I said, we've been building, other than a few weeks, it's pretty much the market, the industry has been going. We never should have been stopped because we're an essential industry in my mind.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Joel. We appreciate it. Next, I'd love to kind of hear from Jason Hunnell from Lexington Homes, a D.R. Horton company. Yeah, we'd love to get your perspective on what do you see the market as today? How's the West Plains? Jason, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you guys. And it's hard following Joel. Joel's hit all the nails on the head there. So that was really good. We have a similar perspective on things. We didn't really get a stop. Some of our trades stopped. So we continued through framing so we could save things up. We continued through roofing and siding to dry homes in. Then we kind of came to a halt when it came into rough in. And that's the real challenge that we're running into right now. I have, out of 137 homes under construction at this moment, I have 68 of them that are stuck in what we call milestone 4 and 5, which is rough in. So that's HVAC rough in, electrical rough in, plumbing rough in, all the way up into drywall. And they're stuck. We had a major accordion effect that took place that's really affecting us. And so it is putting us behind. Those trades are now where they were 2 and 3 weeks out, or 7, 8, and 9 weeks out. But we're working through it and we're making it happen. Nationally, here's the benefit that we get of being a part of the D.R. Horton organization. I get to find out what's happening from 77 divisions in 38 states who built 61,000 homes last year. And I get to bring that market knowledge to us. And they are taking us from roughly a 200 home a year company today to 400 and 500 homes a year in the next 18 to 24 months, probably closer to 12 months. And they're committing that level of capital to this market because they believe in it. And if you look at the West Plains, so we kind of break the Spokane area into 5 submarkets: north, south, east, Liberty Lake, downtown, and the West Plains. The West Plains has always been considered the lowest of the 5 submarkets from a demand standpoint, and that is quickly changing. We started the first D.R. Horton home in Spokane on July 12th of 2018 in Fairway Greens. We have now sold and closed all 55 of those homes as of last week in less than 2 years. We are seeing a major commitment from the community and from industry out in that area, and they need housing. And I can keep talking about the numbers and all the other things that I see. What I really see is I grew up in Liberty Lake, where there were 3 streets in the middle of a field out by a golf course that was out there, and watched that community develop and grow around me. And when I'm standing out in Fairway Greens or any of the other communities that we're committing to out there, I feel the same sense. I feel the same thing that's happening in the West Plains, at least in the area that we're operating in, as I did when I was in Liberty Lake as a child. And we're making a big commitment to the West Plains. I currently have finished out Fairway Greens. We've started in Country View Meadows. We are under contract for the next phase of Country View Meadows. And we're also going into contract on 2 other projects that I can't discuss until I get to that point in the West Plains as well, because we do feel that that area is primed for growth and primed for the housing market. And in the 9 communities that we're operating out of in the Spokane area, Fairway Greens in particular has been one of the most consistently producing projects that we have in every one of them. And I'm building in Legacy Ridge, I'm building up north, I'm building in the valley, and Fairway Greens has been, and now Country View Meadows has been that top producing community or communities for us. And we're seeing it day in and day out. And so we're excited to be out there. And in order to meet the needs of those large commercial companies that are coming in, housing is a major need. Housing has to be there for those people, and they have to be in close proximity to their commute. Nobody wants to drive 30, 40 minutes. And as our community continues to grow, one of the negative aspects of that will be traffic. We will start to see an increase in traffic. We will start to see an increase in that infrastructure. And so having homes adjacent to those businesses is a real powerful thing. we're going to continue to commit to what we're doing there. And I got about 23 seconds left, so I got to move a little quick. But we will continue to be a partner in the West Plains and continue to try to provide those housing needs for many years to come. So I give you 10 seconds back.
That's great. Well, and we'll get a chance to hear from our speakers here in a little bit for question and answer too. Thank you so much for that, Jason. I just love the reference of it's nice having a giant national builder in the area along with some of our local members that are builders at the same time. Just the amount of volume that you can put in the ground is just a good data point in terms of what supply and demand looks like. 55 homes in 2 years, that's a huge number, especially for the West Plains community and what we can anticipate going forward. So thanks for that, Jason. Right now, it'd be great to hear from a real estate standpoint. We have an expert, Christy Hamby, from Windermere West Plains. We would love to kind of hear from you of what are you seeing the trends in the market? Oop. Christy, I'm going to have you unmute here real quick.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There you go. Can hear you. Yep.
All I said is I don't know about being an expert, but we did move out here in 2008, and I've lived out in the West Plains ever since. So when we came, the Walmart was new, and we have just seen the growth happen. So it's been exciting to be a part of. Real quick on the COVID piece, because I think it does affect economy. We are up and running. We are busy. Things did quiet down, I would say, for maybe a couple weeks initially, but I feel like things are booming. I've been working till 9 and 10 o'clock at night. So we're not seeing the slowdown anymore that maybe we saw initially. One of the stats that I was really excited to hear is Windermere has an economist, Matthew Gardner, and he's been giving us briefings every Monday. And his latest one, he gave the prediction of the ones that went into forbearance, because everybody compares this little economic piece to maybe what happened in 2006 and going into 2008 and what is that going to do for us here. What he saw for his mortgages that were in forbearance, which maybe took that opportunity to delay making some mortgage payments, of that there was only 10% of that group that have less than 10% in equity in their home. So what we're seeing different now is that there's more equity in the homes. So his prediction of us hitting a lot of foreclosures and stressed housing market is just not there like we had back before. So I know I get that from a lot of people buying and selling is, how is this different? Are we in a bubble? What's going on with this economic recession? And all the predictions we're hearing from economists is that we are in a very different situation. People have more equity in their homes. So we feel like the housing market will hopefully help pull the rest of the community back into to normal economic times. So that's what I kind of wanted to say a little bit about COVID. Also on that, with your stat from Redfin, yes, I am seeing people wanting maybe bigger houses after they've been stuck in their home for a while. Maybe this tiny home phenomenon is fun for vacation homes, but maybe not so fun to live in all the time when you're stuck there. So we are seeing a move to getting some bigger homes again, so that's nice. And I've got 2 clients from out of state. So we are definitely seeing that out of area market, parents moving to be closer to grandchildren who'd maybe retired someplace else, and maybe people leaving big cities to come to a smaller market who can do more work from home, as you said before. So to give you a few little numbers, and this will kind of go into where I have some concerns. Just for just looking back 10 years, back in 2010, we had 389 total sales in the West Plains. And last year we had 726. So you can see that just in 10 years, we're doing significantly more business. For Spokane County right now, the average price per home is $147 per square foot. And what's interesting is the West Plains is over that. We're sitting at 154 average square foot for West Plains for this year. So that brings up affordability. I feel like because of lack of inventory, because prices are going up, I'm getting concerned about affordability for our people who are moving to the West Plains, our Amazon workers, our base military. Right now, our average sales price in the West Plains is $303,000. And our median sales price is $278,000. And that is a little above the Spokane County average. The Spokane County average is only at $298,000 as an average sales price, and their median is $283,000. So it's interesting, and I think you know, a lot of that depends on what we have going on at our university there in Cheney and our staffing there. And I know there's going to be some changes to Eastern. But a lot of these things contribute, and as you get people moving to the area, that inventory, having the homes for them is getting tougher, and that's driving our price points up with more people waiting for the few homes that are available. So I get worried about affordability. I still get concerns from people moving to the area about water in the West Plains. When they say, I really want to look for a house maybe in the South Hill or up north, and I suggest, why don't we live in a commutable distance? Why don't we live in Medical Lake, Cheney, Airway Heights? And those are the concerns I hear, is the commute to the schools. You know, if you're up in Eagle Ridge, living up there, you've got to commute, you know, for an elementary school, it's a long bus ride. Also, you know, water availability and quality of water seems to come up a lot. And then people sometimes get scared away from Airway Heights, and they'll say, well, what about the prison? What about the casino? And those kind of come up as recurring themes. And it's funny to me, I've lived out here for the last almost 10 years. It's never ever been an issue for me. I feel like we've got such great leadership at our casinos and our prison that's never been something that I feel like affects the quality of life in the West Plains or our business. So ultimately, I feel like our forecast is strong. Everything that everybody's saying is true. We are getting out of town area people moving here. We are getting, obviously we had another new squadron at the base. We have 4 new flying squadrons. That brings additional personnel, 4 flying squadrons total, I apologize. But we had 2 new flying squadrons come, and that just brings additional pilots, it brings additional boom operators, it brings additional support personnel, and we have to find housing for them. And right now they are a little bit on hold with moving in the military, so we'll have a little bit of a breather to try to get them into housing. But I've had somebody waiting for the new Hayden Homes development to get started out here off of Geiger, just waiting to be the first person in there, and that's what I think we're going to see continually out here, is how do we provide the resources for them, and how do we keep prices low? And I know that goes back a little bit more to maybe Joel White, what they're seeing with building and regulations to build and cost to build. If we can get some of that down, then maybe we can make affordability happen a little bit more. So that's kind of what I have. Anything else you need me to talk about there, Toby?
Well, Christy, just since we have you, there was a question that was relevant. What do you see in terms of availability or inventory out in the West Plains at this point, maybe compared to this time last year?
So far for 2020, we've only had 140 total sales in the West Plains, and we had last year 726. But yet sales are up overall. So what that tells me is we're just having a real struggle with finding homes, where inventory is causing our sales number to lack. So I know Hayden Homes is building, I think 270 new units, I believe. And I know Lexington, I know they were talking about the ones that they're building. And I know there's some private builders out here building as well. We just can't build fast enough to get them in. So I would say inventory is probably a little lower than what we need it to be, and maybe a little lower countywide. I don't have those specific answers for you, Anthony. I'll see if I can find those for you. But yeah, I feel like our actual 140 total sales, if you average out what that would be for the year, it would show that we're really down compared to last year, because we just don't have anything left to sell. So hope that helps.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for that, Christy. We appreciate it. Right now, we do want to hand it over to our partners at the City of Airway Heights. Now, I know we'll get some information for our partners with the City of Cheney and the City of Medical Lake as well. We wanted to spotlight Airway Heights with the project that they have kind of going on with their downtown plan, and kind of how they're incorporating housing and some residential within it. So at this point, I would love to hand it off to Heather Trotman from the City of Airway Heights.
Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. I'll be going over both the downtown plan and maybe giving some statistics. I understand there were some questions about development occurring in West Plains and the impact that COVID has on it. But just to start, We are very much interested in facilitating more housing in this area and certainly reducing elements such as commute time and the impact on Highway 2 and I-90. To that end, we are continuing an effort that began in 2017 to complete our downtown plan. So where is our downtown going to be? What potentially would it look like? And specifically, re-looking at our mixed use provisions to see how we might be able to have housing in the core area. So what does that look like? What would that density be? And we're going to be having a bunch of community engagement activities over the summer that are designed to allow for both in-person and virtual participation, depending on how many people can gather. But just as a background, we got a $50,000 grant from the Department of Commerce to help us with this. And the output will not only be a vision plan, but it also will be assisting us in updating our commercial development standards along the entirety of the Highway 2 corridor. Our goal is to understand what businesses, property owners, and residents may need and feel that those commercial areas should provide and look like, how it contextually is going to be meeting with and integrating with US 2 as well as 14th and 15th Avenue parallel to that. And again, what can we do in order to help facilitate redevelopment in our area? So just a real quick push for the opportunities. We'll be sending an email handout to everyone who is on tonight so you can take a look at these opportunities. We're going to be doing a vision workshop, a virtual vision workshop next Tuesday on the 23rd from 4 to 6:30. We do have Zoom information on the City of Airway Heights website under the planning department to participate. The goal here is to understand what people feel the need for a downtown potentially looks like and begin to develop some concepts. We'll also be sending out a visual preference survey in July that we'd love for you to participate in. And then also we would love to do key stakeholder interviews with businesses that are working in and around Airway Heights so we can understand what is the downtown to you, what is our commercial area, what does it mean to be successful, how can we assist with commercial enterprises in our downtown area. So just a quick push on those upcoming 3 opportunities, as well as a little flyer that'll come out that you'll be able to get more of those dates. And hopefully we'll be able to do more in-person activities, including a studio workshop at a storefront in Airway Heights over 2 days that we hope to have on August 19th and 20th. So we can hear more directly from the community and residents about what they would like to have. So with that, I'll go ahead and switch over to the information about what's going on in Airway Heights. So I'm really happy to report that we did have a couple projects that were already in the queue during the time in which there were restrictions on development. Those projects wanted to proceed and continue moving forward with housing. We are just now completing those projects, so that will bring on 41 lots in the Highland Village, which include owner opportunities as well as rental. My understanding is they'll be turning in building permits very shortly for the apartments, and they hope to be completed with the apartments by the end of this year. We also are just in the final stretches of approving 72 lots for Aero Leaf. That will be townhome and duplex housing. They have also simultaneously applied for almost all of the building permits for that project. Just this week, we also received 2 different subdivisions for single family lots for 51 home sites. We'll be processing those, and we anticipate another 85 lot subdivision to be coming in next week. So the great news is that there appears to be a strong desire to move forward with a variety of housing products in our area. I believe that Christy brought up some questions pertaining to affordability. Some of these projects are going to be designed specifically for affordability. Others will be market rate. This does create the opportunity for housing to be located, of course, on the West Plains, which will reduce the stress on Highway 2 and I-90, as we know from our partners at Washington State Department of Transportation. They're very concerned about continued use of those highway systems in order to facilitate relationship. We are also, just as a note, continuing to work on water quality, and we are continuing to pursue a new well system for Airway Heights that would provide a new water source That's the goal for the city as we move forward. And that goal is to be completed with an opportunity to be drilling and provide connection to a freshwater source by 2021. So that's just a little bit of an update. We have already issued since January 25 single family permits. We already have 9 in review, and of course we do have those 72 units of townhomes and duplexes in review presently, and will likely be issued shortly. So those are kind of the updates I have for our downtown plan and what's going on in Airway Heights, and I'd be available for questions or give back the time to the rest of the panel.
Thank you, Heather. Before you mute yourself, I just, Joel mentioned a comment, just the increase. He's seeing that builders are, they're going, and just talk through like the permit process in terms of, are you seeing the increase in demand for permits? You mentioned 25, based on kind of what your capacity is. What are you experiencing there?
We are seeing right at this moment an increase in permits. As I indicated, we had an entire development that wanted their permits to be reviewed simultaneously. So 72 permits, along with the homestead and other single family projects that are already platted and are continuing to move forward with development because they actually have buyers are on top of that. So those 25 permits are for existing subdivisions that they're just selling homes and building at this point.
That's great. All right, well, lastly, I want to invite our final speaker up. So Representative Mike Volz, we would love to hear from him. Just kind of give you some reference. I think there's a lot of concerns or opportunities, if you want to call them that, within the state level that are causing either limitations or opportunities there. And then also he just has a unique perspective of his day job is with the Spokane County. And so we would love to just kind of get your perspective of what is the state of housing that you're hearing for maybe changes in Olympia to help with some of the costs that Joel was mentioning and Jason were mentioning. And then versus just what are you seeing come through your office or through the county regarding housing. So Mr. Volz, we would love to hear from you. And if you want to unmute yourself, it's just *6.
So
There you are. There you go. You are on, sir.
sorry about that. Sorry about the confusion there. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So anyway, Mike Volz, I'm the 6th District State Representative. We're part-time legislators, so I do have a day job, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But, when we go to Olympia, Jeff Holey described it to me, and he was absolutely right. We're an inch deep and a mile wide. So when it comes to these issues on housing, real estate, landlord-tenant relationships, I tend to listen to the people who actually work in those industries and have had a pretty good relationship over the years with the home builders and the realtors and the landlords on that. So I defer to their knowledge and actually learned quite a bit just listening to this conversation today. It is something that I've been following and paying attention to. The real estate and the growth up in West Plains, of course, is pretty extraordinary and impressive. And a lot of people coming to the area and the housing shortage. Unfortunately in Olympia, I think we have done, we go over there as the minority party with the goal of doing no harm, at least. And I think some of the laws that have been passed have done some harm. And the cost, for some of the permitting and all these regulatory requirements just to get a house up and running it can be in the tens of thousands of dollars in places. So you're out of the gate, you're already thousands of dollars in costs out the door before you nail 2 boards together. And then the other thing is over the last couple sessions that the landlord tenant relationship has been flipped completely upside down, where the landlord's rights are being eroded, which is causing significant problems. I've heard from a number of people that were the onesie-twosie landlords, and they can't sustain regulations like this, and a lot of them are getting out of that market. And that's been doubled down by some of these non-eviction orders from the governor have kind of compounded that over the years, over this last few months. So in the treasurer's office, real quick, when the state of emergency was declared, Treasurer Baumgardner actually extended the tax due date under his own authority from April 30th through till June 15th. So a 45-day extension, which was the longest in the state by any treasurer doing that broad extension. And then furthermore, recently, because of these, the governor's non-evict orders, he extended that another 15 days for landlords who can't evict and can't collect during this time period. So they actually have till August 1st now to pay their property taxes. So a press release went out last week on that, trying to help the taxpayers and help the property owners be able to kind of keep up in sometimes a pretty significant way. So that's going on. The other thing it sounds like we will be doing a special session. That's one question that I get frequently, and it sounds like we will be convening sometime in August. It sounds like, not being in, I don't run the place, so I don't know for sure, but that's the latest that we're hearing is sometime middle of August. We will be having a special session. The revenue forecast came out today. I've not had time to look at it, but it's predicted to be quite grim from the state level. But when I first ran in 2016, I think the state budget was like 38 billion, and I think we're at 50 some billion. So I think there might be a little room in there to make some adjustments and roll back some of the spending. So hopefully we will come up maybe with hopefully a good plan. I know there's a $2 billion tax package proposal out there, including an income tax and sundry other taxes, which I think the people have repeatedly made it clear that they don't want an income tax. And I know certainly the 6th district has been, and Spokane County in general has been strongly opposed to those efforts. The last slew of taxes that they passed out in billions and billions of dollars worth of taxes were pretty strongly voted against in the advisory ballot in 2019. And so that was to me a pretty strong message from the citizens on how they feel about this endless taxation that seems to be the answer for everything. So we will see what happens in August. I heard transportation was brought up earlier, and the importance of transportation certainly in the West Plains is of growing concern. I've been actually working to get on the transportation committee for 3 years, and finally got my wish this last year. So I got moved off of appropriations onto transportation, particularly in the West Plains area where you have rail, you have state and interstate highways, you have an airport, and then you have the growing demand on the infrastructure. I think it's vitally important to have a strong voice advocating for that, and I certainly will do my part. So overall, I think kind of a mixed bag of economic news. I'm a finance nerd by trade, and I just saw the jobs report bounces around, and then we have some good news on the consumer side, and it sounds like the home builders and realtors are going crazy. My sister actually lives in Coeur d'Alene, and I have a brother down in Texas, and they're telling me the same thing, that they're not having a problem over there with, they're having a problem. They can't write contracts quick enough, I guess. So there's a backlog for the realtors and selling stuff. So people are moving. Now, one little interesting thing that I read an article about years ago. It's called the U-Haul Index, and I'm agnostic as to brand. And so the theory goes that you can tell what's happening a little bit unscientifically by checking U-Haul rates or moving van rates to and from different points. For example, I just checked Spokane to Seattle today, and so to rent a van going to Seattle costs $250, 26-foot van, $250. To come from Seattle, same van, same miles, same road, costs about $1,400, which indicates, as the theory goes, that there is far more demand to leave Seattle than to leave Spokane and go to Seattle. So it's kind of an unscientific gauge, and every once in a while I'll check it. I've never seen it quite pronounced. I also read a headline, didn't read the article yet, about commercial market is imploding over on the west side, which is probably means that there will be more and more businesses moving over in our direction. So I don't think this is I think this trend will continue into the future, and we have to figure out a way to do it. And I think part of that is we need to, some of these regulatory requirements on being able to build affordable housing. Well, if you're jacking up the price because of regulation, how does that work? So, so that's kind of my sense of things going on. Oh, the treasurer's office, property taxes were due and we extended it, but we had a pretty strong collection. Usually in a good year, we'll collect maybe 97%, 98% of the current year taxes. In a bad economy, it might get down to like 95, 94%. And this is kind of extraordinary. I was expecting it to actually be worse than that. So I think we're collected about 93 or 94%. So it's not total cratering in the economy, and not that most people are finding a way to be able to pay, and we're working with those who can't. We also process the real estate excise tax transactions, and those are coming in quite briskly, with I think a little pause there, but I think those have been solid, and we won't look at the year-over-year reports on that. And so I think that's about all I have. I really appreciate you giving me a chance to speak and putting this together and listening to the real experts in this arena.
Yeah, Representative Volz, we really appreciate that, and the fact that you champion our 6th district. I think it's, I speak for all of us that we appreciate having you on that transportation committee, because roads infrastructure is going to be key to the continued growth out here on the West Plains. So to have somebody to advocate on our behalf for infrastructure is going to be huge. Thank you for that. Well, right now we do want to open it up to questions from the floor. So if you do have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat box. And then while you're thinking of what question you're going to ask, I'm going to offer the first one up to Joel. You had mentioned just kind of the labor continues to be tight. I'm just curious, what can we expect here in the next couple months as we start to hear the unemployment from a county perspective is going to continue to rise? Do you think that that's going to help the trades or not?
One of the challenges, and this is Joel White talking, not officially spoken home builder, so don't want to get anybody scared, but one of the challenges is federal stimulus that was brought in to support unemployment is causing challenges currently. A lot of workers don't want to go back to work, and for various reasons. I'm not challenging them. Some are just scared to go back to work. So they're making more money in many places than they would be if they were working, so full-time. So there's a lot of people who want to go back to work, but there's some that don't. So we're going to have a short term that runs through July 31st. And so they will start seeing a lot of people probably coming back to work starting August, in my expectation. But it's a challenge. It's a cultural challenge. It's not just going to get fixed in 1 year, 2 years. This will be a 5, 10 year, 20 year challenge for our industry, to get individuals, young people to see construction as a career. And so that's something that we need to always be talking about it, and make sure our legislative leaders understand that when they promote STEM education exclusively, it's great, but we need to be talking about these other trades, not just construction, but all the trades. And that's something we just need to be focused on constantly, not ever forget about it when we make it through these highs and lows of the industry. It's going to be, we need to continually focus in our education system on careers in construction. So we would love to have your partnership in that effort.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes it's just the narrative of when you talk to a high school kid that's graduating, how much money they can actually make as a plumber in some of those trades jobs. But at the same time, a lot of our university and higher ed are great partners of ours as well. And so it is kind of a balance of that. And we're right in the midst of that balance. The next question I have comes from, nope, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just gonna say one thing as we all face, and I face it too, is, well, my kid's gonna go to college, but some other kid's gonna go to, into the trades. And so that's where, if you don't think your kid could be in the trades, that's one of our problems.
That's well said. The next question comes from Daniel Clark from KDev. We just want to, he was kind of talking about if you could speak to the permitting process for the West Plains compared to the rest of the county in terms of time and process. So maybe I'll allow Joel, who can be kind of more objective on what are you kind of hearing in terms of West Plains permits versus the rest of the county?
I'd probably defer to Heather, just specifically to Airway Heights. Really, I'm just hearing overall, it's not so much one area specifically, it's just their challenges. Right now, I've got a lot of people complaining about Spokane County. I just heard a number of calls in the last couple of days, so I've talked to the commissioners and the head of the departments, and so they're working on it quickly to resolve those shortages. And it's largely just staffing. It's a staffing issue. They just don't have enough bodies to process the permits. I think you just heard Heather say that they just got hit with a huge number of building permits, that they move as quickly as they can, but if you're not putting the resources ahead, and some municipalities have it as a general fund, like Spokane County is an enterprise fund. So money comes in, money goes out. And so it's a little bit different how every jurisdiction handles that. But every day it permits delayed, it's just one house that doesn't get built. So those are things that it's just timing and hitting the market when the houses need to be built. Because if you get your permit and home built in the middle of November, December, that's a harder market to sell. So timing of these homes is incredibly important.
Thank you for that. Maybe just for Jason, it'd be kind of great to hear from you. We're a chamber that that we represent the West Plains, which consists of, I think, 195 Pullman Highway West in Spokane County. And so a lot of our job is to advocate for the things that we need in order to continue to advance. And that advancement is for our entire area. It's for our members, our individual businesses, and our entire community. So what are some of the challenges that you see in the West Plains that we could work towards to find solutions for, to help advance as a home builder building in the area?
Well, it's hard because out of all the market areas that I'm operating in, I'll just touch base on the permitting aspect. Now, granted, the area that we're building in is through Spokane County, but I'm paying about 2.8% for a permit in Fairway Greens or that area of the county, while I'm paying 4% in Spokane Valley. So it's a little bit more cost effective for me to build out there. The other thing is, land availability is much better for where you guys are at. So it's hard. I've got rose-colored glasses on for wanting to build out in West Plains right now versus some of the other areas, just due to some of those factors. Some of the thing, infrastructure is always going to be an issue for somebody like myself, because I'm always increasing your population. And sometimes we get to that threshold, or we get to that tipping point where I might have put a lot of extra strain on some of that infrastructure, and roads aren't quite up to par, some certain areas, and access to services are something that's always important for my customers as well. So the more we can drive big business, the more you drive small business, the more you drive housing. Sometimes housing drives some of the other things. And so as we continue to see those big businesses also reaching out and getting the smaller businesses and the service-based businesses would be really powerful for us. Grocery stores, definitely something along those lines too.
Thank you for that. Well, and I know that I'm seeing some more questions come through. And so if we don't get to all of them, or they're not answered in the exact way that you're looking for, we'll definitely follow up with a lot of our members. But I see a lot of good comments in terms of some of those developments that are on south of I-90. It's land within the UGA. I think Joel mentioned that too. It's available land to build. One of the questions that we didn't actually bring up, that I don't know if Christy could talk to, or maybe even Joel, of what do you see in terms of the multifamily market coming in? Are you seeing a lot of vacancy rates there, or is that also kind of filling up?
Go ahead, Joel.
Just purely from a building permit standpoint, as I mentioned before, building permits for the first basically 5 months of the year were 104% higher for total units. So my guess is these speculators, the developers, are seeing a huge demand coming. And so unfortunately, because of the income levels in our community, many people are choosing, or maybe not choosing, but having to go to a multifamily rental versus a owner occupied home. And so that's something we would love to see higher home ownership rates in our community, but that's one of the challenges without till we see income growth in our community.
And I don't have any specific stats, just the same as we get people moving to the area, maybe looking for rentals and not being able to find them, and then looking to buy as maybe a second alternative for them if they don't know if they're going to be staying in the area that long. So it would be nice to have some more of that, which I'm not supposed to say as a realtor, but I think we need all kinds of housing, which is what I loved about our Airway Heights presentation, is that they're taking into consideration all kinds of housing and mixed use, because I think there's a need for all of it out here in the West Plains.
Thank you for that. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining our call today. We really appreciate it. We want to thank our speakers again, Representative Volz, Joel White, Jason Hunnell, Christy Hamby, Heather Trotman. Yeah, again, thank you for your perspective. We appreciate that. And then lastly, we definitely want to thank our sponsors. We couldn't do this without you. So Jason Hunnell, Lexington Homes, thank you for just your investment in the chamber and your partnership with us. And then lastly, Valerie Santianas, we definitely want to thank her and Fig Tree Home. Again, make sure, mark your calendars Friday. Go downtown. It's on 3rd Avenue. Go fill up your house. There's some great stuff down there. And then we've got, just to give you a calendar, mark your calendars for July 15th. We have our annual CEO panel. It's typically held at Northern Quest, but with some of the gathering restrictions, it's going to be a Zoom event. We're still excited to hear from our great CEOs. So you'll hear from Barclay Klingel from Cyrus Pies, Tyler Lynn from Lintron. You'll hear from Mike Camphouse from Produce. And then lastly, you'll hear from Todd Weaver from Metals Fabrication right there off the Papered Road. So it's exciting as we talk about the West Plains expansion and the opportunities that we have. It's great to hear from some of those CEOs that have been here for a long time of why did you choose the West Plains? But not even that, what we're starting to see, especially with the Metals Fab, is not only did they choose the West Plains long ago, they're expanding themselves, increasing their footprint. So it's great to hear their perspective on what does the future of West Plains look like. But thank you again for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day.